So we're going to do our Q&A that I've been trying to do for a while now, but it hasn't worked in our favor. Um, I had asked some people to give me some questions and on Facebook, so we're going to answer some of those. Brianna had asked, can each of you name your first date? And our first date was 2013, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we went to my house and what did we watch?
Gran Torino.
Yeah, with Clint Eastwood. I knew that part, but we stayed up pretty late and watched that, and then Brendan went home, and yeah, it was just kind of like a movie date at my house. How did he propose? How did you propose?
She came to visit me, and then we were at the hotel room, and I pulled out the ring and asked her to marry me.
What would your dream date be? So I'm pretty into shopping. I like to shop all the time. Even if I don't buy anything, I just like to go around looking at stores and eating. I'm a big food person. So Olive Garden and shopping would be a perfect date. What about for you?
For me, anything without the kids. So, go to a nice place to eat, maybe go to a movie or something. Hang out, really. Spend time together. Some good quality time.
Where do you see your family in 10 years from now? I guess it really depends on what he decides to do career-wise. If he decides to stay in the Marine Corps, I see us moving somewhere and just kind of going with that lifestyle still, just moving and moving and moving and staying somewhere and then moving again. And in about 10 years, he would be pretty close to retiring. So we would probably be figuring out where we would be living to settle down and what we would do from there. What would you think?
I think it kind of depends on what I do. As of right now, the way I look at it is about to go to Japan for 3 years in December. So I'll be at like my 8-year mark. I'll be looking at re-enlisting. Might as well stay at that point probably, unless I get a good job offer somewhere, or the cards end up playing in our favor to get out or move on to something else. I guess it's kind of hard, especially if you stay in the military, to see yourself 10 years from now, other than you think about being a higher rank, being older, kids older, and in school. Maybe your wife will get a job, or go to school and get a degree in something. Maybe I'll have a degree in something. It's all kind of hard. I kind of have to wait for it to play out, kind of see what your future is for the next year or two. But other than that, it's kind of hard, because even a couple years out, still subject to change. Even if I have 3-year order somewhere, if I get histed or if I get promoted, they might need me somewhere else. You never really know what can happen with that, so you just kind of got to be prepared and see where it goes. It's really hard to plan.
Jessica had asked tips and tricks for life with kids. I would say that some tips would be to have a lot of patience and be flexible. I mean, for me, it's pretty decently easy because I stay home all the time with them, or I try to.
For me, I'd say you have to remember that they're still kids, that they're going to do things that are wrong. They're going to, have attitudes and express, like, I don't want to do that, or I want this. It's just kind of what kids are, and you have to learn to roll with it. They're personality and their how they're acting is going to change, you know. Probably 25, 30 different times a day. It'll change. And you just kind of have to roll with it and see how they're feeling, because, you know, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, it could, you know, be something completely different, and they'll forget what they were mad about, you know, 10 seconds later when you were yelling at them and telling them no, they couldn't have something. They're going to get fixated on something else and want that. So just remember, they're still kids and they have a lot of room to grow. So just take that and you know, try not to, you know, lose your mind. You know, the patience thing is huge.
I would say to give them a lot of grace too, because they're still learning, they're exploring, they're growing. You know, we have a 1 and a 2-year-old, so it's like everything that the 1-year-old is doing, the 2-year-old already did, and so we kind of are okay in that aspect of it, but the 2-year-old is like learning new things and exploring new things, and sometimes it gets really overwhelming because now you have two people, or 2 different kids, or 2 different personalities, 2 different attitudes, so it's like kind of hard to switch between Kristen, our oldest, and her I don't want to do this attitude, and Jalen and her, oh, I want to like explore and I want to experience this, or her need. I guess she's more like needy, and Kristen's more independent. So that kind of makes it a little difficult, but we work through it. Something unique to our family. We're pretty ordinary people, so I mean, there's nothing really like that sticks out. Like, we don't have like ginormous families, or we don't have any like special like talents, or I mean, I don't know, I guess there's not really anything that like sticks out like unique wise. I mean, we're pretty much the average family with 2 kids. Like, Haley had asked, why did you start YouTube? So I originally started vlogging because I thought it would be a good way for people that are outside of like the military, like people that I went to school with, people that I've been friends with for years, to kind of like get a look into what life is like. Right now it's just kind of not boring, but just kind of repetitive, because we don't really have too much going on with like moving and stuff. That's going to be more starting like next month. We're really going to get into moving and appointments and scheduling things and stuff like that. But another reason I did it was so when Brennan's on trainings or deployments or whatever, he can kind of see what we've been up to, so then the things that I'm explaining in messages or emails, he can see like on a video if he has time or if he's able to. I thought that would be a really good way for him to kind of put video with what I was saying, so he can kind of, instead of imagining it, he can actually see what's going on. What was it like to go through labor without Brendan there the first time? That is an interesting question. So he had left for deployment in October, and I ended up having Kristen in November of 2015. She wasn't due until December, but I ended up getting diagnosed with preeclampsia, which is I had high blood pressure and I had some protein in my urine, so that wasn't too good, but they induced me at 37 weeks, and we weren't able to video chat. He was able to call me pretty much throughout the day, throughout the whole induction, but I would say it was pretty nerve-wracking because it was our first kid, and you know, you want that support there with you. I had my grandma, but you know, like, I love my grandma, but it's not the same of having like your husband there for like the birth of your first child. So I think that was really hard for me, and I didn't really know what I was doing as a mom. I had never been a mom. I didn't really babysit newborns before. I think I'd only changed the diaper maybe like 4 times before I had Kristen. So that for me was difficult. How was it difficult for you when you weren't there? What did you feel?
So what happened with that was when I was on ship and had to go through it, I got to make, special phone calls. I got to go to the chaplain's office and just dial right out of his office to call anytime I wanted, for an update or anything until, the birth happened, and for a little while after that to make sure that I wasn't missing, as much as I could without, being there or seeing it. So that was really nice. I made like routine phone calls, talked to her for a while, and like every, few hours I'd go back over there, make another phone call, make sure she was doing okay, see if the baby was born yet, all that type of stuff. But other than that, that's really all I got to do. So it was kind of frustrating because I couldn't share the experience, especially, like it's special for, every child, but, especially like your first child, you're going to be the new parent, your spouse is there all alone, so, there's a lot of, I was young too, I was like, 20 years old at the time, so, I had my platoon there to support me through it and talk to me and give them updates and, tell them what was going on, so that was a lot of help too. And then my lieutenant the next morning ended up, coming to the birthing and telling me that my daughter was born and stuff, so then I got to go call my wife and stuff, and then probably like 10 days after she was born or something like that, a couple weeks, I got to do a live video chat, in one of the offices, and I got to see her for the first time. Well, kind of like she was sleeping and stuff, but I got to video chat my wife and see her, talk to her, see how she was doing, see how the baby was doing, how she was adapting at home and stuff like that. So that was really good, but there's always that big frustration of not being there or being able to help or take part in it or, do what you should be doing as a parent or dad, from across the ocean. So.
And the second part of that question was, what was it like when he was there for Jalen? So, Jalen's birth was pretty much the same as Kristen's. I was induced again because I had high blood pressure. With that, it was kind of different because, in the aspect that I went like a day longer than Kristen because I hadn't had any protein, but I had swelling, and it was a little concerning because all of a sudden it just came out of nowhere, and I was like, okay, well, I don't think this is normal. So I went to Naval, and they were like, okay, well, we're going to let you sit down for a minute, relax, kind of chill out, because, when you go to a hospital, sometimes you get kind of anxious, so that would raise your blood pressure. And so they let me sit there for a good 15 minutes, and they took my blood pressure, and it was like 147 over something, and they want to keep it below 140, and so they told me, they were like, okay, well, we're going to let you sit here for another 5-10 minutes, and if this is over 140 again, we're going to induce you. And it was literally 141, and I was like, okay. So we had to ask someone to watch Kristen because she was there with us, and so we asked some of our friends in Brennan's unit to watch her, and I went through the induction process again, and the Pitocin, and the epidural, and all this other stuff, and it was a little more challenging because Kristen had never spent the night away from us before, so that was in itself just kind of nerve-wracking because it was like, I know she's being taken care of, but I mean, is she crying for me, or is she not going to sleep, or how did that work? However, but it was really good to have Brennan there. I may not have. I used when the epidural part came around, it was really hard for me to relax, and so I ended up using the nurse as a for support, I guess, instead of Brennan, because it was really hard because Brennan's so tall, and she was Brennan standing and the nurse was shorter, so I guess it made it easier for me to hold on to the nurse instead of holding on to Brennan, even though I tried. But it was really good to have Brennan there to remind me that I was going to give birth whether I wanted to or not, and I needed to breathe. And he was really, really great. he didn't pass out like I thought he was going to. Um, I almost had to have a C-section because our heart rate kept dropping, and I was really glad that I didn't have to do that. Um, but overall, I mean, it was a really great experience to see him there and to have him be able to, you know, kind of coach me through it and be that support system that I needed. And I remember after birth, it was really nice too because his mom was here, and I like broke down in the car on the way home. I was like, I'm not pregnant anymore, and I just like started bawling. He's like, you're just not realizing that? I'm like, no, but I guess all those emotions and stuff, it just kind of caught up to me all at one time, and I didn't know what to do. I was like, and we had this little baby, and she ended up having to go to the hospital quite a bit as a newborn because she had really bad jaundice levels. So that was a little difficult too, but she made it through that, and she's 15 months now and hasn't had any problems with anything else since. What was it like for you being there?
It was exciting. It was my, first time. I was glad I was able to be there, and I got to, be like the first one to see her, and got to hold her and cut the cord, and help the doctors do some of the stuff that they had to do. So it was a really good experience and something that I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Another question was, what is the perspective of deployment from both sides? So we've been through deployment twice now. He actually just got back from his second deployment, and I would say that the second deployment went faster than the first deployment. I think because I had 2 kids instead of 1, so they were there to keep me busy. I was involved with his unit more, so there was a lot of volunteer opportunities and just things to get you out of the house and not dwell on it so much. And he was able to get what's called a travel pass on his phone, so that was helpful too. He was able to talk to me a lot more than the first time. The first time it was mainly emails, and so this time he was actually able to use his phone every once in a while and call or text or say, hey, like, what's up? So I think that helped a lot with the communication part. It definitely helped Kristen out when she could talk to Daddy, and I think deployment for me is just hard, seeing your kids and how they miss their dad, but they can't do anything. Like, you can't do anything about it because, I mean, they're on deployment, so I mean, they have a specific time that they're gone, and Kristen ended up with a stomach bug the day after Brendan left, and I felt so like helpless because I was like, she wants her dad and he's not here to help her, and I don't know what to do for her, and I like, we got through it, but that was really tough for me just because I didn't know what to do because she didn't want me. But I mean, it's over and we did it, so I mean, if we can survive 2 deployments and be fine, I'm sure if we have to, which we probably will, we can do more. Right? What was it like for you?
So, being on ship, it's like, almost like you're closed off to everything. So it's like, wherever you go, you're still confined to the ship, no matter how big it is. Even like an aircraft carrier or anything like that would seem small, once you've been on it for a week or a few days. The schedule is super repetitive, like you're doing the same things. Chow's always at the same times. There's always a, hour and a half wait through the chow line to eat. Sometimes the internet's not working. Sometimes computers were all taken by people doing work, people trying to talk to their families or send emails, and, stuff like that. I think like the biggest thing is being closed off from life while you're gone. Essentially, like you can get on a computer and you can, kind of look up the news and stuff like that whenever you do get on a computer. But do you want to use your time doing that, or do you want to use your time to talk to your family, or send some messages, check Facebook or whatever, so that's kind of like the biggest thing is for me was being closed off from everything, not having a choice or really know what was going on in the world, like when I'm gone, like my wife was back here, she had the house, she had the air conditioning, she had the Wi-Fi, internet, the car to go places, able to go to stores and eat Taco Bell and do whatever she wanted, like you don't have any of those options really while you're stuck on ship. You're kind of like working with what you can and trying to get through it. So like it really isn't that bad. It's just being confined and having the same like boring repetitive schedule to get you through for 6 months while you're waiting for something to happen or waiting for your next operation to get off ship for however long you would be off for before coming back on. Some of the cool things I got to do though was I went to like 6 or 7 different countries, I think, altogether. I went to the country of Georgia, and I learned that they really liked President Bush from whenever he was in office, because whenever we first went to war in the Middle East, in Iraq and stuff, when we did the initial push, we saved the country of Georgia. The locals were telling us is that they really liked us and enjoyed us there. Like everywhere you went, they were applauding and saying thank you and all this stuff. And one of them explained to us that if we hadn't have gone in over there, then their country wouldn't exist anymore. So it made me feel good that being a part of an organization that I got to do something for the people. It's not really often when we're out doing our jobs, or I'm going to work on base every day, and you talk to people that were impacted, or you get to do something that's actually for the people, whether it's people of another country or your country or whatever it is. So that was really exciting. I went to Poland. I got to take part in Kiel Week in Germany, which is pretty much like kind of like a fleet week, I guess, where you have a bunch of ships from a lot of different countries show up in port, and I got to see a bunch of them, like China, Italy, American, obviously, I was there. Just a bunch of other ones. Some of them were older ships, some of them were new. Like one that really interested me was it was made out of metal, but they still utilized wood for the decks instead of having like a metal flight deck, or the whole thing made out of metal and steel. So that was pretty cool. Seeing a lot of people and locals there. I was also in Poland for a while. We got stuck there for a couple weeks, and they had this giant celebration going on. Or no, that wasn't, Kiel Week was a giant celebration. And then I was somewhere, I can't remember where it was. I went to so many places I don't remember everything. Anyways, I went to Poland and seen a lot of people. I was also in Lithuania, Djibouti, Jordan, Spain, a bunch of other places. It was pretty awesome. Places I didn't go the first deployment. So, like overall, it was a great experience. I got to meet a lot of people that spoke different languages and had different cultures, and I got to eat some of their food. So that was really cool. So overall, it was nice. But I'm glad to be home. So I really miss being home, and I like being home better because I get all my, you know, freedoms back of being at home, having air conditioning, eating what I want to, not having giant lines to stand in. So I think I'd still rather take that than be gone for 6 months doing all those crazy things. So.
From Melissa, and she had asked, what was the adjustment you all had to make after he came home? How did it affect your routine change and the girls? It didn't really, I guess, affect the girls too much. They were just really excited that their dad was home. He's definitely a big part of their daily routine now. They request him at every waking moment. He can't even leave for work in the morning without "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy," like, and I don't think that'll ever stop, no matter how long he's been home. They're really into their dad. I think they prefer him sometimes over me, and sometimes it makes me really angry because I'm like, I birthed you, like, I took you into this world, like, you know, like, and now you. All you do is talk about Daddy and how much you love Daddy, and you want to walk with Daddy, and you want Daddy to read you books, and you want Daddy to put you to bed, and you want Daddy to give you a bath, and you want Daddy to feed you. Like, I'm like chopped liver now. Like, what does Mommy do? Like, Daddy's at work all day, so Mommy has to do things for you, and they just are just like, no, like, just give me my dad. Like, I don't care. Like, so I mean, in that aspect of it, it's he's definitely a big part of their routine every day, and so it kind of makes it a little difficult for me just because, like, he works all day, so it's like if I don't do it for them, it doesn't get done. So it's like I have no choice, and they have no choice but to deal with it. I'm really glad he's home too because it makes it easier for me to be able to work more on, like, house stuff, like laundry and dishes, when I don't have two kids, like, climbing up my legs and, like, climbing in the dishwasher or trying to climb in the dryer or, like, throwing all my clean clothes that I just put somewhere on the floor, or unfolding everything that I'm trying to, like, put away. I don't know, little small stuff like that, you know, kids do. Just kind of makes it easier for me to get stuff done in that aspect of it. But I think he enjoys being home and seeing his kids, and I'm okay to hang out with sometimes, right?
Sometimes.
I'm sure it's an adjustment for him after being on ship with a bunch of guys for 6 months, and some girls, I'm sure, but coming home to Daddy, 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 and not giving him any space. They're like leeches sometimes, I swear. Like, here, Daddy, let's read a book. Hey, Daddy, let's watch Moana. Hey, Daddy. Right?
Amanda normally has the front door open in the afternoon when I get home from work, so Kristen will hear the car pull in, and she'll, Amanda started locking the screen door now, but she would, like, just open up the screen door, run outside and run up to the car and just screaming, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. As I got home, I'd open the door, she'd try to open it for me, and she's not quite there yet. But I'd get to open up the door, and then she'd, like, you know, rush the car and like pulling on my arms and trying to give me hugs and stuff while I'm still sitting in the car trying to get out of it, grabbing my stuff. It's one of the, like, things I look forward to, and throughout my day when I get to go home, is seeing my kids and how happy they are to see me and how much they want me.
All the time.
And really enjoy playing with them and stuff, but it's a pretty big adjustment for me coming back, because, you know, I was used to doing everything by myself or for myself or for the Marine Corps. You know, like, they had all the time in the world because, you know, I didn't really have a life while I was on the ship or on deployment, so I had nothing but time to volunteer for work or to stay late or to, you know, take more tasks in the evening or whatever it took to occupy the time. So it was kind of butted heads when I came home, and Amanda was like, well, we do do this way at this time, and I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that now since I'm home. Like, we have to come up with something different. Like, routine's got to change to match, our schedule with me, going to work and coming home, and what we're doing on the weekends and stuff like that. So it was a little frustrating, and I think we're still kind of getting used to it and adapting. I've been home for 3 weeks now tomorrow, so it's definitely a huge adjustment. Like, it seems like it really wouldn't be until you go and you have to deal with it and do it. Then you realize all the small things that don't line up anymore, all the things that you have to take into effect for the other person or for the kids that they have to do, or your spouse. So that's why it's such a big problem whenever you get back. And we receive a lot of classes and stuff, from the higher ups and other people on what to expect and how to go about these changes, and things take time. So it definitely helps, but I don't think no amount of classes or no amount of preparing is going to make you 100% ready, or make it the transition painless. It's going to take some work and time to get through it and manage it, but you slowly figure it out, and things start working again and flowing, and then the more things start flowing, the easier it gets, and the easier it is to start making the other things line up and match up and start flowing too. So it's getting there.
Another question that we had was, you've been married for almost 4 years. What are your favorite parts of marriage, and what are your least favorite parts of marriage?
I guess from the Marine Corps side of it, the best part of marriage would be, other than having a supporting spouse for doing your job, but you get to go home every day and kind of, you can establish the separation from your life and in the Marine Corps, and that saying that you're a Marine 24/7. I can go home, I can see my kids, I can play with them, I can unwind, talk to Amanda, go about our days, cook dinner, get away from the barracks on the weekends or whenever I take leave. It's really good that way. Personally, the better things about marriage is that support from your spouse and your kids, your family, getting to enjoy them and spend time with them, and spend time with somebody that you love and want to be with for the rest of your life. So sometimes it takes people longer to find that, or to be ready to move on and have a family or a spouse or something. But
I would say that the best part for me, for being married, from the beginning, Brandon was always kind of he was what's the word? He was always dedicated, very dedicated to getting my attention. He's very I'd say he's still very dedicated. He's very interested in making sure that we have everything that we need, especially when it comes to the kids and stuff. And that's always something that I kind of looked for before getting married. Basically someone that would just make sure that I was taken care of, and if we had kids, to make sure that they were taken care of, and he does a really good job of that. He also is very loving and supportive, and he's a realist. So when my dreams get too far-fetched, he always kind of brings me down to reality. He's like, look, Amanda, we have these 3 options, and if it doesn't fall in between those 3 options, you're gonna have to either wait, or it's just not gonna happen. So
she calls me the dream crusher.
Yeah. Sometimes that's how I see it. I've always been a very big dreamer for things that, I don't know, I tend to watch things on TV or read something in a book and I'm like, oh, I want that, but it's like, that's not my life. Like, my life is here with my husband and 2 kids. Like, I can't just run away to some dream job and just leave them here by themselves. So sometimes that really, I don't know, that gets in my way, I guess, and it makes it feel like he's crushing my dreams, but in all reality, he's just bringing me back to earth and like, hey, like, that's not able to happen right now. Like, he tries to be supportive in the way that he's like, okay, well, maybe we can work this out this way, or maybe we can switch things around so it could work this way, but most of the time it's just not gonna work in my favor, which is fine. Sometimes I rag on him a little bit about it, and I'm like, oh, well, you don't care about anything, and but that's not true either. I guess probably my least favorite part of marriage is when he has headaches, and he gets migraines. They're not headaches, but for the first, I don't know, 2 years of our marriage, whenever he'd end up like sick from a migraine, I'd always like grab the keys to the car and be like, okay, I'm gonna go to Walmart, or I'm gonna take Kristen and the kids out somewhere else, or I'm gonna go find something to do far away from you so I don't have to hear you end up sick. And that's, I don't know, there's not really any like downfalls in our marriage. I would just say that there's a lot of love in this house. A lot of good times, a lot of laughter, a lot of wrestling, a lot of I don't know, it's just like 4 years have flown by. I would say that definitely have been some of the best 4 years of my life, and I wish I would have said yes to you earlier, since you had asked me out like 6 times in high school, and I said no.
Persistent.
Yeah, persistent. That's the word I've been looking for this entire time. He's very persistent about things that he wants or likes or whatever, and apparently he really liked me for whatever reason. And here we are 4 years later, 2 kids later, and I'm like, why wasn't I smarter? But it's great. I wouldn't want to spend my life with anybody else, right?
No, I can't answer that for you.
Yeah, but yeah. So those are our questions and answers for right now, and maybe we'll do another question and answer video another time based around something else. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to like and subscribe, and look out for new videos for moving and getting stuff ready for Japan.